So this is another representation of the data that is from the 2015 PISA test. So out of the 71 countries that were measured, we scored 24th in science and reading, and then we scored 38th in math. On the chart, you can see some of the countries that scored ahead of us and some that scored behind us. So we are consistently performing lower than a lot of other what we would consider developed countries. So why does student achievement data matter? Why do we measure it? Why do we spend so much time focusing on it and its validity? Well, it matters in the classroom to teachers and parents because it gives insight into how the students are doing, strengths and weaknesses, what they need to work on, or where they need enrichment. And then communities rely on these scores to judge the quality of their education system. And then when we're looking at state and federal levels, it matters because lawmakers use that data and use those metrics to determine whether public schools are effective or not. And they look at those when they're allocating different resources and funding. So it helps us understand how our students also are performing comparatively with other countries and how well they're going to do when they graduate and ultimately enter an ever globalizing international job market and economy. So when we see those struggling test scores, that struggling student achievement, we have been focused on how can we improve student achievement? What can we do as educators? What can lawmakers do? What can parents do? And the conversation really ultimately revolves around one certain thing, and the arguments revolve around one certain thing, which is mostly money and funding. How are we going to improve that student achievement? That generally ends up revolving around money. And when we're talking about money and education, people tend to fall into two different camps of thinking. The first one is that, yes, other factors are extremely important, and other things can influence student achievement, but financial support is the primary need for schools to improve student achievement. And the second line of thinking that people will fall into is that, no, we keep spending money on education and it's clearly not helping. We need to try other strategies to improve student achievement and rely on those instead of just funding. So that first line of thinking, how can we improve student achievement, tends to think, the most vulnerable high needs schools are not getting the money and resources they need, at least not enough to close those gaps that exist. And that if we do spend more money in those struggling schools, that it'll pay for itself in the end because of an increased benefit to the community. And the solution tends to be more money for impoverished public schools. This is a quote by Linda Darling Hammond. She's a professor at Stanford Graduate School of Education. So she says, our nation's economy depends on a well-educated, high quality workforce, and that means investing in all students. Right now, in many states, schools with the highest need students receive fewer resources than those serving the most affluent, which translates to less experienced teachers, larger classes, and ultimately lower graduation rates and lower achievement levels. Investments in these students are investments in the future and ours. If we don't ensure that they have the quality schools that their wealthier peers have, we deny far many of them the opportunity to succeed and to contribute to society. So that kind of represents that first line of thinking that I was talking about in regards to funding schools, increasing funds to improve student achievement.